And now we will start with this second day workshop on Airbnb, where Nancy will be sharing the tips and tricks on how to take your Airbnb to the next level. Nancy is a licensed real estate broker in the state of Texas, and she has more than 15 years of real estate investing experience. She's also a best-selling author, national speaker, and teaches multiple investing strategies to investors. So Nancy, thank you very much for being today once again here with us. And now I leave you the stage for your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you, Real Estate IQ, for having me back for day 2 of this workshop. And so I'm just going to take a second here and share my screen. Let's see, share screen. Here we go. I'm getting better at this. At least I'm going a little bit faster. Just got to move all the boxes and everything. So everybody, welcome back. I'm excited to be presenting. I know some of you missed the first the day presentation. So I am going to do just a brief a review of what I talked about, because today I want to focus on, you know, how to, once you've got your Airbnb up and going, how to get it to the top and keep it booked. So again, welcome to everybody, and thank you, Real Estate IQ, for having me. I appreciate it. So when I started last week, what I said is, I get asked all the time, where do I start? How do I find a property? You know, how do I know it's going to be a good Airbnb? So first, you need to ask these 6 questions. I'm going to just briefly go through them. So who's your target group? What's your business model? What is the attraction? Why would people want to come to the area or stay at your Airbnb? What's your price point going to be? How do you screen guests? And what additional services do I need? So those are just some basic questions that I reviewed last week about, you know, where you should focus when you want to start an Airbnb business. And we talked about the reason you should get into Airbnb now. So I've been getting into Airbnb because it's just a very lucrative market right now. And so if you're a real estate investor, it's about knowing the market and knowing when to shift. So right now I'm not doing flips just because I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's super competitive. It's really hard to find a deal. So I've been focusing on, you know, really starting my, getting my Airbnbs up and running. And I'm just having so much fun doing it. It's the best investment strategy I've ever come across. I love it. Of course, we talked about, well, to get started, you need a property or a space. You do need to create some kind of business plan. And I actually talked to someone after the show last week, the presentation, and we're not talking about, you know, a 20-page business plan. It could be a very simple business plan, you know, just kind of how you're going to run your business. You need to invest in some calendar management applications, not expensive, but it's a way that you can be on multiple platforms for your listing and make sure you don't have double bookings. And service team, I talked extensively, and I have, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, go out and subscribe. And I have a great video with where I interviewed someone that I personally know and has a great cleaning company that we talked specifically about how important a cleaning crew is to your Airbnb business. So check out that video, and then how you're going to advertise your Airbnb to get people to book it. So the business plan, just in a nutshell, like I said, it can be very simple, especially if you're not really sure, but you kind of need to think about this, right? How do you determine pricing? How will you handle guest turnover? Are you going to manage it yourself? And then I did talk a little bit about insurance, because not all insurance carriers on rental properties handle short-term rentals. So you definitely need to have an insurance, talk with your insurance agent to make sure that or your insurance broker to make sure that you have the right insurance. And the last thing that you want to happen is you have something happen at your property with a short-term rental guest, and then it's denied because you didn't disclose that. So it's not that much more expensive. I personally have Liberty Mutual / Travelers, and there's 5 others. I don't know the names of all of them, so I would just check your insurance carrier. And the reason I know there's only 6 is because I was on another presentation with an insurance guy who said, and he pulled up the names of the companies. So one question I get asked all the time, I mean, all the time I get asked this, Nancy, where should I buy an Airbnb property? So, that's a really loaded question, if you will, because it depends on so many elements of when you're looking for a property. So here's what I say. If you have not owned or haven't purchased a short-term rental, first off, think about where you would want to go on vacation, right? I love Texas. I have an Airbnb at Lake Granbury. I also love the Smokies. I haven't bought a property out there yet. I love Florida. I love Colorado. There's so many destinations that you could think about. So instead of trying to, kind of beat your head against the wall, like first start with where would you want a vacation, right? Because one thing about a short-term rental is that you can use it personally as well. So where do you want to travel? Where would people want to travel? So you have to see what's around the attractions. And then who's going to manage it, right? So that's another important question, because let's say you want to buy out of, so I saw some people from Florida, but let's say they want to invest in Texas, or you're in Texas and you want to invest in Florida. So who's going to manage that property for you? Are you going to fly there? How are you going to handle it? That's a big question. And then the other thing that's very important about is how are you going to find cleaners and vendors in the area? So for me, Granbury, I had to really kind of get into the community. I had to kind of go to the chamber meetings and get very involved, because to find great vendors, I mean, we've all probably had, horrible experiences with hiring different contractors or whatever. So you really kind of have to get a presence in the community that you're investing in too. Also, you can be kept abreast of what's happening in the area and that kind of thing. So if you're sitting there and you don't know where you want to invest, first start thinking about where you would want to go. The next thing I say is maybe you have a long-term rental that can be converted into a short-term rental. So we've done that as well. We've taken one of our long-term rentals and we said, okay, let's apply the 10 identifiers that I went over in the first program, and said, okay, yeah, this will make a good, we did all of our due diligence and we, checked the numbers, and it'll make a great Airbnb. So you can take an existing property that you already have and you can analyze it to see if it'll make a good Airbnb. And then lastly, when you're looking, I bought my last Airbnb right off of the MLS. Okay. So yes, I do buy distressed properties, but I was looking for a property that I could quickly turn into an Airbnb. All the numbers made sense. So again, I kind of searched an area. I went on the MLS and I was like, I made an offer on a property. So I bought it retail, which is not really what real estate investors do, right? We always are looking for that 70% of ARV. But in this case, I didn't want to have to take the time or the money to rehab a property. So, so there's all kinds of places where you can look for vacation properties. Now, I also get asked, well, how much is it cost? Now, this is not an investing strategy that you can do with zero money. You're going to have some skin in the game, and it usually has to do with, once you've identified and purchased the property, and even if you're doing rental arbitrage, where you're going and finding a space and you're subleasing it from another property owner, you're still going to have to furnish that that space, right? And generally, it's about $10,000 to $15,000. If you can get away with it for a lot less, good for you. Depending on the type of space, if you have a 5-bedroom, very high-end property, you might spend more than $15,000. So you've got to think about, let's just take a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. You've got to, furnish not just the furniture. And so I've done it both ways. I've gone out and just went to the furniture store and bought a whole house full of furniture. And I've done it where if I had time, I was able to search Facebook Marketplace and buy, couches and chairs and dining room tables and that kind of thing. I'm pretty handy with refurbishing furniture. And so if you have the time, you can do that. So you can, it saves you a whole lot of money to do that. I would always don't buy used mattresses and spend money on good mattresses. This is probably one of the things that I get the highest compliments on in our Airbnbs, because I actually buy really nice mattresses. I've tried a few that people recommended on Amazon and I slept on them and I didn't like them. And, think about it this way. If the guest is having a hard time or having some problems and they don't get a good night's sleep, they're probably going to be a little bit more grouchy with you. So, spend some money on good mattresses. I mentioned Facebook Marketplace. I get a lot of my stuff off of Amazon and Walmart. And then in each property we have what we call the owner's closet, because you're going to need to have a stocking system. And So let's say that you have a property that sleeps 8 people. So that means that you need, and they're all, one's a king bed, you got 3 queens. This is one of mine I have. So you need to have minimum 2 of everything, 2 sets of sheets, you know, comforters, duvets, whatever you use, covers for the pillows, towels, washcloths, black makeup. I mean, just, it goes on and on. So for turnover purposes, you can't just have a set of 1, right? Because typically the way cleaning companies work for turnover on Airbnb is they'll go in and they'll get all the linens and they'll either do them on site or they'll take them off site. But you know, they're going to be washing them and bringing them back the next time they turn it. So you just have to have extras of everything. And, you know, stocking toilet paper, and, you know, you don't want to be running to your Airbnb unless it's close and you're managing it, then it's doable. I don't live close to Granbury, so I have an owner's closet where I keep a supply of, you know, everything from the coffee I provide to the creamer to the, we provide welcome baskets, so all the little things I put in there. So it adds up after a while, even if you do get everything off of Amazon and Walmart. So you just have to make sure that you have enough supplies on hand, and that's the startup cost, right? And then it's ongoing. And then one of the things that I would highly recommend that you do, so if you have a property that seats 8 or sleeps 8 people, then it needs to seat 8 people, right? So some of the teachings that I do with some of my clients, what I say is like, okay, that's great that you have a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo that you're going to Airbnb, and you were able to put 4 guests in there. You know, you've got 4 beds, or maybe you did bunk beds, and you got 6 people in there, but you only have a dining area for 2 people. That's not going to work, right? So think of it as, you know, first you want to find out how many people you can sleep into your property, and then where are they all going to sit? And they're not going to want to sit on the floor or the couch. They're going to want to sit together. So think about your seating and your sleeping. That's kind of what it's, seating and sleeping, okay? Now let's get into some booking strategies, and I'm kind of jumping ahead, and I know people might have questions and I'll be happy to answer them. But let's say you have your Airbnb all up, and you know, you want to get bookings. I mean, that's the whole idea, right? If you don't have bookings, you're not going to make money. Now, the way the different platforms work, and I'm not an SEO expert by any means. This is what I'm just telling you from my own experience. What happens is when you're first new, you do get to go right up the top, you know, brand new listing. So for a few days, maybe a couple of weeks, you'll be at the top. But then after that, you have no reviews, you know, people aren't booking your place, and then you're going to fall. So you might be, you know, 10th person down on the list of all the Airbnbs that are out there in your area. So what I try to do when I started my first Airbnbs, I would give a discount, right? Because my idea was to get bookings as quickly as possible, get reviews, right? The 5-star reviews, so that I can get to the top. In slow seasons, you can give discounts, right? You don't want to do this all the time. And that's why you want to have a calendar platform so that you can go in. So like on weekdays, you know, I tend not to book as much, but I also go in and try to raise those bookings by giving a discount. So Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays might be only $150, but as an example, but Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are $225, right? So I'm still giving my weekend nights, because people usually book weekends, but I also want to get bookings during the week. So I'll do a discounted price in the week. You can do discounts if they do longer stays. Like if you have someone that books for a whole week, you could do a discount that way. This is just in the beginning when you're getting started. Now, the other thing that both Airbnb and VRBO rate you on is your response time to guest inquiries. So if, for example, Airbnb will actually count it down, and they like it for you to respond as soon as possible when a guest inquires about your property. Now, for me, I don't have instant book on. I like to kind of vet the guests before they come. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But you want to make sure that you're a host that communicates. In the Airbnb business, you know, customer service that's like once you get your listing up, you just have to be focused on that customer service. You know, if you've ever worked in retail before, it used to be, you know, the customer was always right. So it's kind of that same mentality. maybe they're not always right, but you have to give them great customer service. And so Airbnb actually rewards you if you are someone who posts in a timely manner. And then, like I said, mentioned before, lower rates for hard to book dates. So I have a listing that has a pool, right? I don't think anybody's really going to be booking my house with a pool, let's say in February during freeze. So I adjust prices because I know that the big attraction in the hotter months is the pool, but in the winter months, not so much. And I can't turn it into an ice skating rink, so that won't work. And the big thing is you want to get noticed. You want to get your listing to the top. So here's some just little tips that you can do. So you can just go in 2 or 3, 4, do it daily. I have a VA that actually does this for me. They just go in and change my pictures around. I take one picture that's, the main picture, and I'll move that. We'll snooze the listing for an hour, and it's all about the algorithms. And again, you know me, I'm not techie. I just know it works because as soon as I do that, I start getting inquiries. So it's almost like the platform's force you to continually work in your Airbnb listing. You can post your link on social media to get more people to look at it and like it, adjusting the rates. And then whenever you update the listing with added amenities, maybe you, I don't know, for example, I have a Mr. Coffee, and that works for me. But maybe a Keurig would be an extra amenity. That's kind of a small example. But maybe I'll just update my listing. Or we added a hot tub. And so I was able to just update the amenities. We're going to talk about target groups, but if you end up creating a workspace, then you can go in and update the amenities. And every time you touch your listing, it helps with the algorithm, right? So then you get to the top and then Airbnb and VRBO and the other platforms, what they do is they'll give you how many people are looking at your booking. So you get all these analytics, and you can say, okay, well, a lot of people are looking at my booking, but they're not booking. Why is that? So you can actually analyze why you're not getting bookings. So it's just another added bonus of how you can kind of control how much money you're making. So how to make the most money with your Airbnb listing? Well, first of all, your listing needs to look nice. Now, I will tell you about this algorithm. So I have a property, and it's just it's an okay property. It's not super high end. It's not on the water. I do have a tub there. And, you always need to have professional photos, but by the time your listing is ready and you're ready to pull the trigger, you have to get the photographer out there, then wait for them to edit the pictures and get them back to you. So what I did is I just threw up the listing. I took some pictures with my iPhone and I just threw them up on Airbnb. And within 48 hours, I had a booking, right? So it doesn't always have to be professional photos. But again, I think the reason that happened was I was a brand new listing, right? But give your listing that wow factor. A lot of people, and if you have a direct website or whatever, it's a lot of people are looking on the site on their mobile phone. So how do your pictures look on a mobile phone, right? What is going to make people want to come and stay at your property? All of my properties have pet friendly in the headline because people search for pet friendly. I travel with my pets, and I want people to say, hey, I'm pet friendly. And here's a little tip for you. If you go out and do a search for Airbnb properties as a guest, you'll find a lot of hosts don't do pet friendly. So we made our homes pet friendly so that we can invite that kind of higher group of people that are looking to travel with their animals. And we also have one that's waterfront, I have one that's hot tub, I have a pool. So I use those in the heading to attract people, because when a guest is looking for a place to stay, not only are they searching for the location and the dates and the number of beds, but they're doing filters for bed size, pet friendly, kid friendly, workspaces. I literally we provide irons and ironing boards, which I can't remember last time I used an iron. And I literally had a guest ask me, do you have an iron and ironing board in your property? And we do. So I was able to say that. And for the platforms, that's considered an amenity. So get yourself an iron and ironing board. Do get professional photos. So I had a photo shoot done in the winter months. They were pretty brown. So I'm actually, I had them edited the green, but I'm actually going to have more pictures done, because if you have If you have a winter home, great, then you'll want that snow in the picture and everything. When it's dead brown here in Texas, yeah, I don't want that in my listing photos. It doesn't make it look very pretty on the outside. So I'll be getting another set of professional photos done in the spring when everything's blooming. Your listing description is super important because this is going to tell people a little bit about your property. Obviously, the pictures are, what's that saying? A picture speaks 1,000 words. But it's always good on your pictures to have a little description of what they're looking at. So like the kitchen area is open, or, fully stocked kitchen, take the time, if you're doing it yourself, take the time under each picture to write a little description of what they're looking at. And another thing, when you're putting your pictures out on the platform, put them in order as if the person was entering the property. So for example, if they, see the outside of it, but maybe that's not your first picture, maybe you want to show a great living room or something like that. But then as they start rolling through the pictures, it's like, let them, okay, they're walking into the living room, and then they go down the hallway, and then they're in the kitchen, and then they see how the kitchen is attached to the dining room. And if you can kind of paint a picture of what the space looks like for them, it makes it a whole lot easier for them to envision them and their family there. And then lastly, on your listing, be transparent, honest, and deliver impeccable customer service. So if you have cameras in your property, which I do, I don't have them inside, no cameras inside the property, but I have them outside, and I have 3 or 4, depending on the size of the property, cameras located in and around the property. And you have to disclose that. And they're the type of cameras that record audio and video. And you're fine with doing that on the outside. Never ever put them on the inside. That's just creepy and weird, and it will get you banned from platforms. But you can have them on the outside, but the thing is, you have to disclose that. Now let's talk about fees. So in my first presentation, I talked about how you can go and do 2 things. 1, find your competition and see how much they're charging. And 2, see what you can charge per night through AirDNA. That's the website, AirDNA. Now, let's say that your cleaning fees, so cleaning fees have gone out the window. They're so expensive. Hosts complain about this all the time, about how expensive it is. Well, here's the reason why. The cleaners got smart, and they said, dang, a good cleaner is worth their weight in gold. Because if you don't have that's like the #1 complaint from guests, is the cleanliness of the property. So if you don't have a good cleaner, that's just going to kill your business. So cleaners know that now, right? And so they're charging more because they can, especially if they're good. So let's say that your nightly rate is, and this is not uncommon, let's say your nightly rate is, I don't know, $225, and you have a 4-bedroom house and your cleaner's charging $200, right? And you're like, whoa. So as a guest, when the guest sees that cleaning fee, they're like, whoa, that's like almost more than what I'm paying. So what you do is you lower the cleaning fee to say like $150, $160, something like that, and you up your nightly rate. So instead of charging what you're paying your cleaner, so it's psychological. The guest doesn't feel like they're paying more for the cleaning than they are for your nightly stay. And you can just bump your nightly rate up to absorb the extra cost. Don't eat it. So I have a cleaner that she actually is really good. And so I negotiate with her because she's doing all my properties. So one property she charges more, she charges, the other 2 she charges a little bit less because she's doing 3 properties for me. So I just have the same cleaning fee for all 3 properties. And then I'm able to absorb the extra cost, if you will, in my nightly rate. When you're figuring out on AirDNA, okay, so 2 things. 1, to find out your competition, you're going to log into Airbnb as a guest, not a host, a guest, and you can literally, type in the area you're looking for, and you can find out who else is doing Airbnb. They have a little tiny map, and you have to keep scrolling, keep zooming in on it. But when you do, you can actually start seeing street numbers or street names, and so you can kind of figure out, oh, okay, this is how I do it. When I'm analyzing a property, I go on Airbnb as a guest, and I zoom in to try and find what my competition is there. And then to find out what you can charge per night, you're going to use AirDNA, right? You're going to type in the property address and it'll say how many beds, how many beds, not bedrooms, but beds. So if you have a 4-bedroom house, plus a living room, so you can put, let's say, 1 king size bed in 1 bedroom. You can put 2 queen size beds in 2 other bedrooms. You can put a set of bunk beds in another bedroom. So that's, what do we got now? We got 2, 6, 10. And if you have a pull-out couch that's queen size, so your place can sleep 12 people. And you can configure how much you can charge for that. Now, what did I say before about the rule? If you sleep 12, you have to seat 12, right? So you want to have a dining area that can accommodate 12 people. But that's just, you don't do it on bedrooms, you do it on beds. Now, here's a little tip. It's not even in the presentation, so it's a freebie for you. When you are looking at properties and you have the bedroom, do try to put a king size bed in at least 1 bedroom if you can, if you have space and you can do that. Why? Because people will search and use a filter for king size beds. Because think about it, if your partner is like 6'4", and let's say they're 6'4" wide, or they weigh a lot, they're going to need a bigger bed, right? So you want to be able to accommodate different, especially the height, right? That's not going to work. I have one property where I have 2 queens and a double, like not a twin, but a double. And it's hard to get 2 adults comfortably in that double bed. So just think about when you're configuring your space and your bed size, you want to think comfort, good mattresses. You want to think about attracting the highest amount of people. So do searches by kings. And then how many people can you squeeze into your property? Now, here's another little note on that. So if you have a property, let's say it's a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, do not cram 8 to 10 people out of there. Okay. So if I'm on a girls trip, right, with 8 of my best friends, I'm not going to want a house that has a 1 bedroom or has a 1 bathroom for 8 women. It's not going to happen. So just kind of think about the configuration. And the one little house we have, we actually don't charge as much because it's just in the neighborhood, and it's anyway, it's booked all the time. So I did raise the rate and it's still booked all the time. So you might have to play around with that a little bit, but when you're thinking of your property and your space, think about, common sense. So just because you can sleep 12 doesn't mean you should. Now let's talk a little bit about direct bookings. So why would you want to do direct bookings, and what is that? So direct bookings is when you build your business so that you're not relying on Airbnb, VRBO, booking.com. You're actually taking the reservations from the guests directly to you. So you would want to do this for a couple of reasons. One, Airbnb, they all charge fees, right? They all have different fees. And let's get real. When you start doing Airbnb, you can't vet guests as well as you would like to. And sometimes you get those bad guests, right? And so we're going to talk about how you can screen guests, but even the best screening that you can do, it's not like you can do a full-on background of people, right? So you'd want to do direct bookings. Now this means like the website itself has, or your Airbnb has its own website. It can take payments. So let me give you an example of why this might be something you want to do. So Airbnb can and has, not to me personally, but I know people it's happened to, they can shut you down just because a guest complains about something. And if you're only on Airbnb and that's your only source of income for getting bookings, then you're just like out of luck because they've just shut you down. Maybe you can get back up. They've suspended hosts. I was talking about the listings, and disclosing cameras. So let's say that you did have cameras on your property, but you didn't disclose it. That's a reason for Airbnb or VRBO shutting you down. If a guest complains about something that's unsafe, Airbnb can shut it down, and you don't really get a say about it. They just suspend your account. So you're giving them control, right? So doing direct bookings is not something you can do just right out of the gate, unless you're just, SEO friendly and you can really get it, or you already have a book of people that will book your property. But you would do it to have control of your own Airbnb business. So this is something that I'm actually working on, and you gather the list of people that you want to have back, repeat guests. You can offer them, this is where you can email them directly. So Airbnb doesn't allow you to get their email address, right? And if you ask for it, because I tried this. You ask for it on their platform. Yeah, the person will say, oh, best place to reach me on my email is, and they just blank it out. So they don't want you to have direct contact with the guest that way. One of the things that I do is I build a list. So there is a way to collect that information, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. The other thing is a welcome book. And so in our welcome book, what we do is we advertise our other properties, right? So they're at your property and then they're kind of flipping through your book and like, oh, look, they have a couple other properties or they have another location here. And then they're like, then, you know, they're going to be interested in your other properties. Contact human resource departments about their needs for corporate bookings. You know, if you're in an area like the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Houston, Atlanta, you know, any metropolitan area, kind of the same thing with nurse finders. I personally haven't used nurse finders because I find that they haven't in the areas that I have, they don't have anybody that wants it, I guess, because I'm in more of a vacation rental area. But, you know, corporate bookings are great because they'll pay. And I have done a couple corporate bookings. Insurance companies. So when I was a property manager, we would get contacted by property insurance companies. So like when there was a fire, or a year ago, February, we had that big freeze here in Texas, and people, you know, were out of their homes. They had water damage. And, you know, so think about people that get displaced, and insurance companies will pay very well to house their clients. And then you'd want to create a website for your listing. Now you could do it a couple different ways. What I'm doing is I'm doing it under my company name. So I have a website, and then those properties will just be featured under there. So there's a whole lot of ways that you can do direct bookings, and it gives you complete control of who's booking. It saves you the fees that you're paying, but it does take some time to build. Now think about, especially if you want to do direct bookings, and as you're advertising on any of the platforms, who your target groups are. So for example, remote workers, right? So most everybody in 2020 and 2021 and part of 2022 are working from home. I mean, some of us are, you know, eventually going back to the office, but Wi-Fi is a must, a workspace. Like I mentioned, the iron and ironing board. So I just had some people book one of our homes, and that they were there for work for the week. And so they have to have Wi-Fi, they have to have a workspace. And if you have like a designated desk area, you know, that's even better. So maybe you have one of those built-in things that they can flip down, because that's listed as an amenity on the platforms. Maybe your target group is families. So ours is mostly families. So we have like a pack and play or crib. You could provide rollaways. Do you have kid-friendly dishes? You know, plasticware for little ones. Do you have games, high chairs? And I will say this about games. Go to your thrift store. You could get all kinds of different games. And I'm not talking about like console games. I'm talking about board games. And they'll get destroyed. So don't spend, you know, 20, 40. I couldn't believe how expensive board games were anymore. So we just had our fully obliterated. So go to thrift stores and buy that kind of stuff. You can provide game consoles. I'm not a gamer, so I couldn't even tell you what that would be. I know Xbox, and I think there was, okay, this will date me, Donkey Kong. You could provide bicycles. We have a pedal boat. Now, I will say you'll want them to sign waivers that they're using it and that kind of thing, but it's just kind of nice to have those extra amenities that you can offer. One of the areas we do have a couple of bikes, again, they're just there. We do have something that says, hey, you know what, if they break, we're not going to, you know, run out and fix them or whatever. So we try to keep them in working order, but they're just bikes, right? Now, remember I talked about how Airbnb can just shut you down. And one of the reasons you can get shut down is if your listing is not accurate, right? So let me give you an example of how this could happen. So in one of my Airbnbs, one of my chairs got broken. I had 2 sidearm chairs. So one of them got broken, and we took it out of the property, and it ended up taking, I don't know, a couple of months by the time we could get the chair fixed and everything. I literally had to update. The pictures were the same, right? Because I didn't take new pictures, but I literally had to go into the listing and say one sidearm is missing, right? Or one sidearm is out due to being repaired or something. So you want to make sure you're accurate, because when a guest shows up, And then they say, oh, well, this was in your picture, but you didn't mention it. So you need to kind of protect yourself. So that's why I was saying, notify the guest of change. And I'll even put it on the platform when I'm messaging a guest. Hey, you know what? I know my picture shows 2 sidearms. I had to take one out to get it repaired. So there's only one. I can't stress enough about disclosing cameras. And then lockouts, what I'm talking about here, we talked about in the first session about having keyless entries. You do not want to be running, don't mess with, you know, keys that can get lost or taken or anything. So use keyless entries that you can change the codes on, but have a backup for lockouts because they will happen. The battery might go out, might get frozen. They might not figure out how to work it. So we hide little combo boxes on somewhere on the property so that in case the person cannot get in, we can't get the code to work, then we have a way for them to get into the property so that they are not just stuck out there. And then anything that's unique to your property, you know, so, and this goes into the description, you know, how many minutes, this is a question I get asked all the time. People will want to know, how far is it to, I don't know, the grocery store? How far is it to the amusement park? So put in your listing, you know, 5.3 miles to amusement park, 3.2 miles to community boat ramp, to give them an idea. And I will actually have guests say, hey, can you tell me how close the property is to this other location? So just, that's always nice because they're like, oh, okay, that's there. So that's something that a lot of hosts put in their, either their book or in their welcome book or their listing on the platforms. So now let's talk about, so you got your property up, you're getting inquiries, and now you're getting, you know, requests to book. So like I said, I turn off Instabook. Instabook means that the person can just go on the platform and VRBO or Airbnb or booking.com and they can just book your property and you don't know who they are until you get the notice that, hey, so-and-so just booked your property. So for me, I don't like that. I want to know that they were verified and I want to read their reviews and things like that. So number one, I do verify that they have an ID. So typically I would say about 90% of my bookings come through Airbnb, and on their profile picture, and you can put this in your listing, I literally say they have to have a profile picture, right? I'm not going to take somebody that has their dog or, you know, a letter or something like that. So verify the ID. I have a requirement of 25. They have to be at least 25 years old to rent the property, and they have to have prior reviews. So for example, I had a guy, so you guys tell me this or tell me in your comments. So he messaged me and he wanted to rent one of our higher end properties for a weekend coming up in April. And he literally said, hey, me and my guys are coming for a wedding and we want to book your property. He just joined in March of 2022. He did have a profile picture that looked like his high school football picture and his buddies, and they had 0 reviews. So I said no. And then he said, well, what can we do to change this? And I said, if you want to pay, you know, and I said to him, based on what is being reported on the platform, you have 0 reviews and you just joined like 2 days ago. If you're willing to pay a $1,500 security deposit and list out all the names of the adults 25 and older that are going to be staying in our property, we will let you book our property. So guess what? He came back and said no. It was too much. So I was like, okay. So you can do that. I mean, you can take people without reviews, and you can set your own parameters. So security deposits, you can take them. Make sure that you take secure payments. If you're going through the platform, never take, if you get a message that says, oh, my company will send you a check, you know, they're booking it. No, that's a scam. So make sure that you're taking it through a secure payment system. And I highly recommend it. Just take, if you don't have a way for direct bookings, that you take it through the platforms. So what questions do you ask guests? Well, what brings you to the area? Why are you interested in my listing? Where are you traveling from? Have you read the house rules? And will you be bringing a pet? Now, I have a platform where all of this is automated. So as soon as somebody inquires and I approve the listing, I've already looked at them, then I send them this. I want to know, you know, a little bit more about them. And then I want to know what kind of pet they're bringing. We don't accept cats. Are you celebrating a special occasion? I ask this because this kind of gives me more information about why they're coming here. And I've literally had people tell me, well, you know, we're going to have a party at, or we're celebrating a bridal shower, whatever it is. So you get to know all this information. And I'm sorry, I said I ask all these questions before I approve the listing. So they've sent me an inquiry. I've read their profile. They get an automated email that asks them all these questions in a much less direct way than I'm asking them here. I'm just kind of getting the point across. And then I don't always get all the names of the adults, but in the case the example I just gave, I would. But for insurance purposes, it's always good to get the names of the adults that are going to be staying in your property. Now, one of the things that we moved to, and remember I said a direct booking, you have to kind of start collecting information. So one of the things that you can do is do guest registrations. And what this is you can have a card on the property, you can send it, you know, you can give them a call and say, hey, I have a guest registration form I'd like you to complete. We leave ours at the property, but the goal is to collect their info, right? Their email address and their phone number so that you can build your book of business, so to speak. Now, just because they sign it, you know, and fill it out at the beginning of their stay doesn't mean at the end of the stay, you might just tear it up because you never want those guests back. But I would say that, you know, 99% of the time you're going to want to book those guests. So it's a way for you to build your list. If you have to file claims, you have a little bit more information about the person. Some people, you can request their ID. I don't do that, but you can do that. But for insurance purposes, you might need to do it. I have to say, I haven't had any bad guests. The thing that I've had is people, I'm very pet friendly. I mentioned that I have a small pet fee. It's usually $200 per stay. And people will tell me they don't have pets and they know I have cameras. And sure enough, they brought a pet to the property. So it's just very interesting that they would not disclose the pet. But so far, everybody's paid. But I actually got dinged by a lady that she gave me a 4-star review instead of a 5 because of the issue with the pet, even though I literally talked to her on the phone and she said, no, I'm not bringing a pet. And sure enough, the camera showed that she had a pet on the property. So the thing that you want to focus on is the guest experience, because in the end, what you want to do is make money, but you also want to get those 5-star reviews. So I've kind of talked a lot about this, about, you know, communicating with the guest, you know, becoming pet friendly doesn't mean you have to. Now, when we talk about pet friendly, we're not talking about emotional service dogs. That's a whole nother presentation. But if somebody does have an emotional service dog and they disclose that, you can't charge them a pet fee, and you have to allow it even if you're not pet friendly. They're changing the rules a little bit about that, but make sure that you give good directions, you know, and set the guest up for what the expectation of the space is. My check-in and check-out procedures are all automated. So check-in, check-out. And what I wanted to share with you, well, before we get to that, is guest safety. You know, you want to make sure you have locks on the bedrooms, the doors, the windows, smoke and carbon dioxide, you know, the things up on the ceiling, fire extinguishers, a first aid kit, numbers to hospital, fire, and police. And I'm going to show you how I put a lot of that in my welcome book. Now, the reason I say guest safety is because that's one of the things that you can get shut down for. So pay attention to guest safety. So every house, every host has a welcome book. It can be digital. I have mine in the property because I just think it's nice to have it hands-on. I can send it digitally, but I like it to be in the property. It includes information about my husband and I, emergency contact, the Wi-Fi password, because they will lose it. If you, I don't even send it ahead of time. I just say it's in the book. Things to do in the area, restaurants that we like, and our other properties. So I'm going to show you. So here's they open it up. It's got the picture of the property. So this is my husband, Brian, and I on our boat. We want to show that we're fun people, you know, that, and then we'll say, you know, here's your host, excuse me, Brian and Nancy. Here's my contact info and my email so that if they need to call me about anything, it's right there in the book. Now, yes, they have this on the platform, but what if the Wi-Fi goes out, right? So they still have a way to contact me. We have a section in the book that says no rules. Now, you can't make the rules like so overwhelming. They're like, dang, because most of these rules are in my listing, right? But these are the top 8 that we definitely want to make sure they know about. So not only these are in my listing, but they're also written in the book to remind them, hey, this is a no, here's the rules. And you see that I think this is kind of a fun page because we got the no on the bottom and the rules. And then we just say, hey, these are what our rules are. And if you'll see number 8, we're on a septic system. And so not only do I have a rule, but I have a sign in the bathroom that says, you flush it, you fish it, you pay for it, right? So you kind of got to give a little humor because people will pay attention and remember things that are a little bit more humorous than if I just said, don't throw anything down the toilet, right? So keep it light, keep it light, but get your message across. Check out, this is again in the listing that they're doing. It's also in the automated email that goes to them through the platform, and it's in my book. So I just want to make sure that they know, hey, let's lock up that property. Let's get it. Thanks for staying with us. We like them to take out the trash, start the dishwasher. We don't really care if they strip the beds, we throw it in there, but we definitely want all the wet towels in the bathtub in case the cleaner can't get there for a couple days. And, you know, it's Texas heat and I don't want, you know, mold on my floor or whatever. So we want to make sure that they at least tidy it up somewhat. And remember that cleaning fee. So if someone is paying a $225 cleaning fee, they are not going to want to clean up your property, right? Because they're like, well, dang, I'm paying that cleaning fee. Why should I have to do any of this? So make your cleaning fee kind of like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You're going to come in and dust and vacuum, and I'm just going to put this stuff in the laundry basket. And we do provide laundry baskets in each of the closets, so they can just, they're plastic. I like plastic just because, you know, wicker sometimes tears. I don't have cloth because I don't want any more. I just want the towels to dry out. Now, if you liked all that information, I'm trying to be considerate of the time here. Well, there's a couple things going on today. So I do have an online course, how to start your Airbnb business. And I teach you how to analyze any property, how to set up your nightly rate. You know, there's a welcome book format you're welcome to copy. We go into rental arbitrage, how to write a business plan. You know, there's other money-making services. That's a whole nother presentation in the Airbnb space. And just how to, you know, how to run a business. And that course normally sells for $497. For this Real Estate IQ attendees, I'm offering at $197. And what you'll need to do is just email me at nancy@kbnhomes.com, and then I'll give you the link to get this price at $197. And it's well worth it. And after you finish the course, then what will happen is you and I will have a one-on-one where I will help you analyze, help you write your business plan, whatever you need. You'll have a follow-up consultation with me to help you either get started or scale or wherever you need to go with your Airbnb business. So, and then we are actually giving away one of these. We're giving someone the opportunity to win my online course today. I believe we're going to announce the winner right here on this. So stay tuned. It's going to be for the people who attended both. So if you attended both sessions, it could be your lucky day. And then lastly, I want to talk to you guys and just announce, I'm so excited about this. So I wrote a book a couple of years ago called Winning Deals and Heels. It was a national bestseller, all about some really famous real estate investing women, myself included, Kristen Gerst and Susan Tierney and Jerry Thompson. And we are putting on a women's real estate investing conference in Granbury, Texas. We just got all the details lined out yesterday. It's going to be at the Granbury Conference Center, September 16th and 17th. We have an awesome guest speaker lined up to come and talk to the ladies. And on Saturday night, we're having a party to close off. So instead of an opening ceremony, we're having a closing ceremony. It's a great way we're going to be talking not just about Airbnb, but we're going to be talking about how to do marketing, owner finance strategies. It's 2 days of just jam-packed networking with like-minded women and all the education for the tools and the strategies that you need to either get started in real estate or scale your business. So if you're interested in that, the tickets are going to go on sale next week. It is $14.95, and that includes the conference and your breakfast, lunch, and Saturday night's dinner. Anyway, so if you're interested in that, I hope you can make it. All righty. Okay, then I'm going to wrap up and answer questions. I do have one request of everybody though. So one of my goals is to get more subscribers on my YouTube channel. And I have a boatload of videos about Airbnb. So this will be a bonus for you. But if you all would go to my Nancy Wallace Lobbs, go Google, YouTube, Nancy Wallace Lobbs, and go subscribe, I would so appreciate it. My goal was to get to 500 people by the end of March. I'm not sure I'm going to make it. I just checked it. It's like 159. So maybe we can at least get to 200, right? But thank you again for attending, and I'm ready to answer all the questions.
Great, Nancy. Thank you so much. We have some questions here in the chat. We can start with these ones.
Okie doke, let's do it.
We have here Eric asking, on the Airbnb platform, how do you secure analytic data on your own listings?
How do you do what?
How do you secure analytic data on your own listings?
Oh, they have metrics on there. So they have, you can just go right to the Airbnb. I think it's under Insights or something like that. And they have the statistics right there. It's under Report or something like that.
Great. Then Eric also is asking, do you do corporate rentals or medium-term rentals? Can you suggest some best practices for this market?
So I do both. So I try to get in front of as many people. So I have target groups or families and then corporate. And so I just try to network with that and get to know as many HR companies as I can, reach out to them. And then the second part of the question was, what was the second part?
It says, can you suggest some best practices for this market?
For this market in terms of Airbnb or for the Dallas-Fort Worth market, I think as far as best practices go, if you have a business plan and then you have kind of like a welcome book, but if you do it digital and you reach out to corporations that do corporate housing, you can actually send them the information, kind of come up with a template that says, hey, if your company, participate, what I would do is I would make some phone calls first and network that way. Insurance companies, your agent is a great place to start. And what I would do is, or what I do is I have a template that once I find out who might be interested in corporate housing, then the folks usually have a person in the company that takes care of the bookings for them. So for example, I had someone that they managed the Spartan races in Granbury, and they're all over the place. So he booked one of my properties, and so I got to know him, but his assistant is the one who booked it. So I was able to communicate with her and send her, hey, because at the time I only had one, and I said, now I have more. And so, wherever you're at, if you guys want to book with me. So it's kind of relationship building, but definitely you want to have something in writing so that when you're sending it out, they have a link to your listing so they can see the space, why it would be good for corporate, what do you provide, like the Wi-Fi, the workspace area, that kind of thing. So I hope I answered that question.
Great. Then we have another question. How do you collect security deposits on the Airbnb platform?
You can do it through the resolution center. That's how I do it. So what you do is so in the example I gave, if that young gentleman had wanted to book, I would have simply sent it through the resolution center. All of our conversation was on the Airbnb platform, so he already agreed to it. So he has to put up his credit card and he has to pay it, and that has to be paid before I give him access to the property. On a direct booking site, same thing, except that if you're using, PayPal or Venmo or Stripe, which is I use Stripe, you get the money before you give them access to the property.
Great. Sounds great. Then we have another questions. What are the different ways you enhance the guest experience, both inside a rental and outside experiences?
Okay, good question. So the way I enhance it is kind of twofold. One, I communicate. I'm like all on it on the communication. Like I welcome them. We provide like a nice little welcome basket of things like, if you're traveling and just a little snack. They're all prepackaged. I go to Costco to get them. We make it very, I'm a minimalist. And so when you walk into the kitchen, in my properties, all the appliances is very clean looking, right? It's very clean. I use white towels. I use white quilts. We provide we have a pool and a hot tub, as I mentioned, so I provide beach towels. So little tiny amenities go a long way with guests, and then commuting, and people love this, the pet friendly thing. So I provide, not only am I pet friendly, I provide pet pads for the furniture and old blankets and old towels. And I let them know, hey, for, you know, your fur baby, we provide little poop bags, we provide doggy bowls and a doggy mat. So we literally invite their pet, because a lot of people treat their pet like their children. They love that. On the outside, what we've done is we put out lights, like little outside lights, just to kind of around the hot tub and the pool area, just to make it a little brighter. And then we provide barbecuers, not gas one. We just do Weber. We're a Weber family, and we provide a starter of, you know, charcoal and that kind of thing. So just the little touches, you know, we don't have to do that, but it's, you know, then and it was so funny because a person like called me, or she messaged me and said, oh my gosh, you know, and I forgot to get the lighter for the charcoal, because sometimes you just forget. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I said, hey, if you go out and buy one, I mean, they're like, what, $3 or $4? I said, I will reimburse you, right? So she said, oh, that's okay. So just think of what you would want, what would enhance your stay.
Great, thanks for the answer, Nancy. Here we have another. How much does it cost to get your first Airbnb property? And do you need to credit?
Well, so the cost is going to be on how much the property is, right? So if it's, you know, a $300,000 house, then it's going to cost $300,000. So, and as far as credit goes, if you're going to need a lender, it depends on the kind of lender that you get. So if you're going to use a private money lender, they might not care about your credit, right? If you know them. I do another whole thing on, you know, private money lending and how you can get people to lend money to you. So that's kind of one of those questions that's really like, well, it depends on what the property is, right? So if you're gonna, you may buy a property that, like I did, where it's off the MLS, but I didn't have to do, you know, I only had to do a few things to it to get it ready. Or you might buy a fixer upper, you know, you still have to furnish it. So it's going to be the cost of your, now, I don't know this for sure. I do asset-based lending, another presentation, but if you have to go get a loan, you know, there's a possibility that you can use it as a second home loan, a second family. I forget what they call it. Yeah, second property for your home. And you might get a loan for 10%. Of course, you know, what you're going to pay for an interest rate and how much you're going to put down is all based on your credit score. So unless you do asset-based lending, if you don't have a good credit score, you're probably going to pay more in interest in how much you have to put down. So hopefully that answered that question.
Excellent. Here we have Eric asking, besides AirDNA, is there any other site to acquire STR data metrics that is reliable and cost effective?
So I have the free AirDNA. There's also Price Labs people use. I personally haven't used it. But yes, Price Labs out there. I think there's another one, but the name escapes me. But you could certainly Google that and find out. But Price Labs is another one that people use.
Great. And we have Christine asking, would you consider outsourcing? If so, who would you use? We have 4 sites of my real estate business, and Airbnb is a new site that we are starting.
So when you mean outsource, do you mean somebody to manage it? Or, so I'm going to answer that in 2 ways. One, are you looking for management?
Yes.
And if you are, okay, so
He says
management.
yes.
Okay, so if you're going to hire a management company, do your vetting on that company. So I had a property management company, and what I was paying them for was all they were doing was listing my property on the major platforms, right? They weren't doing any of the turnover. They weren't, you know, they weren't communicating with the guests. And I'm like, okay, well, why would I do that? So if you're someone that you can outsource, there's so many things that you can do with your Airbnb business in terms of doing it yourself to get it set up. And then you can hire a virtual assistant to run a lot of it, because you can automate all those messages. Once you have your cleaning company in place, you can automate, you know, hey, I have a check-in, check-out. So there's a lot of things you can automate. If you do get a property manager, just make sure whatever they're charging you. The other issue I had was the pricing. They weren't pricing it where I wanted it to be priced. They were volume, and so they were okay with doing it lower. And And then I wasn't getting any bookings because, you know, and I fired them. And as soon as I fired them, I just started getting bookings. I was making more money. So I would just be careful about who's managing it and what they're going to do for you. If they're going to handle the whole thing, then you probably expect to pay about 25 to 30% for them to do everything from start, you know, handling the turnovers, the repairs and things like that. So just vet them very well and make sure that they do that. And how are they going to price your property?
Great. And she's also asking if there are companies that do it all or only listing.
There's both. There's ones that just, the one I was talking about, just lists it. And the other one, I mean, there's other people, there's smaller property management companies, you know, that maybe in your area can do it. So a lot of it depends on where your property is. And if there is already a bona fide property, a lot of people will say they're property managers. So that's why I'm saying you have to do your due diligence in hiring a property manager to make sure. I mean, if you're just going to turn over your business to them, you might be more well served if you're just starting it to keep it in-house as much as you can until you know the ins and outs of working the business before you really offload it. And, you know, you could probably hire a part-time person to take care of that for you.
Great.
Just my thoughts. Just my thoughts.
Great, great, excellent. Thank you. And here we have another one from Maria that says, that asks if you manage all your Airbnbs.
I do. I do. I just fired my property manager coming a few months ago, and I'm so glad I did. And I automate. I spent a little time learning automation. I'm not the most techie person. I am a former property manager, so I have that experience already, but you know, it's one of those businesses that you can automate it. There's a lot of tools out there that will do the calendar management for you. We're moving towards the direct booking. And I have a VA. So I have a virtual assistant that helps me, you know, kind of oversee some of the automation part of it or whatnot. So, but I don't really get too involved with the day-to-day stuff anymore. I'm more like, okay, you know, the pricing, I still keep pricing, you know, I want to kind of keep my hand on that because that's how I know I'm making money. But you can outsource to a virtual assistant. And it's kind of funny, when I said this last time in the presentation, and I just launched a course called How to Hire a Virtual Assistant, and it's only going to be $19.95. So if you want that, it's well worth it. It's 3 modules where I just teach on exactly how to hire a virtual assistant. So just a little plug there about Nancy and her online course.
Sounds great. And we can answer this last one. Samara is asking, what do you think about VRBO?
You know, I get bookings from them. I mean, I don't really, they have higher fees. So what I do is I go in and I raise my rates on VRBO because they actually have, their service fees are higher than Airbnb. And I get about 90% of my bookings from Airbnb and maybe 10%. So I don't really have any feeling one way or the other. I still use the same process. So I have a platform where everything goes through, all the messaging, the calendar and all that. So I still use the process to vet them and things like that. And I did have instant book on VRBO by accident. I got a booking and it turned out okay, but I turned it off right away. So